Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic, and today I want to talk about monster exchanging for two of the Gung Ho collab Another Story cards. So, the monster exchange system is a brilliant system because it allows us players to exchange our excessive duplicates for a card that's potentially of value. Now, this trade ratio is either going to cost as low as 4 6-star Godfest exclusives, or the highest end of 5 7-stars. And in the case of Gung Ho Collab Another Story, it's going to cost you 5 7-stars, which is definitely on the costly side. And at the same time, I strongly encourage players not to trade away their last 2 copies of a given card, especially 7 stars, because Gung Ho has a tendency to continuously buff, update, give new evolutions, or just make them valuable in some way, shape, or form. And you don't want to end up in like a situation like, say, Valkyrie Seal, who was arguably one of the best, was arguably one of the worst cards prior to her split evolutions, and then suddenly she became incredibly valuable with 2 potent evolution forms. So with that being said, let us take a look at the 2 Gung Ho collab cards I feel are most noteworthy to talk about. So the first one is Orlando, who is Thanos in the true Marvel collab itself. And the reason why Orlando is great is because he has immense personal damage with a 5 attribute, double 7, potentially a 10 combo, but his attack stat is gargantuan. It's at 10,000 plus. So yeah, huge amounts of personal damage from Awakenings and one of the largest attack sets you could ever imagine. So he's going to hit hard on your rainbow-based teams. But what makes him a truly standout card is this 40-turn cooldown that is a 50% gravity. It's the only 50% gravity in the entire game. And this is valuable because the large majority of super resolve thresholds tend to be situated at the 50% mark. So if you're able to gravity it down with just one active skill, you can potentially bypass a ton of nasty and or dangerous mechanics. So in like MD4 or Alt MD4, which will eventually come our way, this active skill can help trivialize the final floor, which is obviously great. But at the same time, it's going to be challenging to utilize this active skill effectively in many other situations outside of potentially, say, co-op farming. So if you are someone who tends to co-op a lot, or you have an alt account so you can play with yourself, Orlando's active skill can be invaluable when you're farming potentially tedious dungeons, because anything with that 50% super resolve can be instantly bypassed. And the 40-turn skill, the 40-turn cooldown can be mitigated greatly in co-op because, skill boosts are shared across the team. So it is definitely a much more luxurious card, but at the same time, because it is the only card in the game that has this type of active skill, it does make them significantly more valuable. Just be mindful of the fact if you do pick up Orlando, you must monster exchange for his evolution materials. I feel like those would be the Infinity Stones in the actual Marvel event. Don't know what they're called in this one. But point of the matter is, if you don't get those 5 specific evolution materials, which you can acquire through the monster exchange system, you're not going to be able to evolve them into this form. Furthermore, because this is the valuable form that does require those rare evolution materials, you're not going to be able to swap his evolution forms liberally or at ease, because sometimes a card will eventually get just outpaced or outclassed, and you may want to just swap him into a weapon assist. But you could do that with Orlando, but you're never going to be able to re-evolve him again. So that is definitely a bit of a drawback overall. So if you get him, you make him this form, you're stuck with this form. Don't undo this form. And then the other card that I feel like deserves some mentioning is Captain Marvel's alternative of Millie Tia. And why are they so good is because they have immense personal damage with triple 10 combo, and on a transforming card that is obviously considered excessive, so to speak, but the sub attribute will easily damage Cap. But in super gravity based dungeons, their damage output actually becomes much more feasible because it can be difficult to hit big numbers when your attack values are reduced to a tiny percentage. Furthermore, they have 3 enhanced light combo awakenings, which means the entire team is going to deal more damage when you match 2 or more light combos. So their active skill is kind of like the submarines or transforming watches in the sense that it's a 2-turn cooldown that gives you orb generation. It changes darks and hazards into light, along with a movement time buff and an attack buff. So quite a powerful active skill all around, but it doesn't actually make heart orbs, which obviously can be problematic because you may not be able to actually heal back up if you're not actually generating heart orbs, unlike things like Royal Oak and Nautilus, who do make heart orbs with their active skill. So you have to be mindful of that potential downside. And at the same time, to a certain extent, Light Skull tends to be a very popular sub for these teams because, again, immense personal damage, lots of enhanced light combos, and their active skill gives you a board unlock on a 2-turn cooldown that makes 3 light and 3 heart orbs. And those 3 heart orbs are important because now you can actually heal. So you could pop Scald, well, you could, if it's locked the board, you can pop Scald first to unlock it, or otherwise you would use Millie first and then utilize Scald after, because Scald is random changing. Millie is changing Dark and Hazard specifically. So I think they are definitely a strong leader. They don't have an auto follow-up attack component, but that's okay because for UN2 or the 1,000 Arm title challenge, you don't need one actually. So Millie can potentially be a great solution for yourself. If you're struggling to clear the title challenge, you have Scald, and you think this is a card you actually can gain enough value out of. And then with that being said, I feel like those are the only 2 truly notable cards in this event. While it is definitely a fair statement to say that the Gung Ho collab Another Story does feature other strong cards, I don't think they're necessarily worth going out of your way to Monster Exchange for, because this is a costly trade. And let's say if we get One Piece, trade fodder is going to be competing with that trade fodder overall. So for myself, I feel like I might pick up one Orlando on my main account because they do a bit more trade fodder, and that way I have the ability to co-op with myself and have the chance to actually bypass those super gravity thresholds. But with that being said, let me know what you think about these cards and the whole Gung Ho collab Another Story in the comments down below. Do you think it's actually worth Monster Exchanging for them, or are you just rolling with your freebies and just kind of ignoring the rest of the event? Regardless of all that, hopefully you all have a truly fantastic day. I wish you all best luck in your own pet adventures, and happy puzzling.